Much better.
Okay.
Okay. We're whenever you want, just start.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. We are in the beginning of the Torah, and these stories are jam-packed. Feels like we could have 25 Parsha classes just about one Torah portion each week, because when we're in Genesis, when we're in those early stories, it's all narrative, which means that you might have many different miniature narratives within one Torah portion. And this week, we're reading Parshat Vayera. And I like to think of this as Isaac. This Torah portion begins with Abraham and Sarah being told that they're going to have a child. And the Torah portion ends with Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, or as some call it, the sacrifice of Isaac, or rather the almost sacrifice of Isaac. But it's really this big Isaac story. Last week was Abraham. We had Lech Lecha, where Abraham is creating a covenant with God, and we are seeing the birth of the Jewish people. And then this week we see Isaac, Yitzchak. And I wanted to point us today to one particular moment, which is that we might be familiar with, and it's okay if you're familiar, it's all right if you're not. Abraham and Sarah are in the later stage of their life. They are much older. They are past a time when they thought they would be having children. A classic barren woman story of the Torah. Our people begin with a cycle of barren women, 1, 2, 3, again and again and again. So Sarah's the first one who we see in that situation. So Sarah, who wanted a baby so much, who gave her handmaiden to her husband Abraham so that she could have a baby through him. God finally sends messengers, 3 messengers to Abraham and Sarah. And these messengers say, you are going to bear a child. And if famously, Sarah laughs. Sarah laughs. And actually the name Yitzchak, the Torah says, it means laughter. Tzachak, to laugh. That the name that they're going to give to this child is going to be Yitzchak. And on the one hand, we might be thinking of the story and say, okay, 3 messengers come, they tell elderly Abraham and Sarah, and we're talking 90s, 100s, those years, saying you're going to bear a son. I mean, who wouldn't have a little chuckle? Who wouldn't have a surprise? Who wouldn't have such a visceral physical reaction to hearing that type of news? Which is exactly what happens to Sarah. But God's response is what I want to focus on. So Sarah laughed, saying, now I've lost this ability. Like, what are we going to do? And God said, why did Sarah laugh? Shall I in truth bear a child? Right? Like God saying, like, why would Sarah laugh at such a thing? Now we might be sitting there saying, God, don't you know why she would laugh at such a thing? Don't you know why she might have this type of reaction to these angel messengers saying you're going to bear a child? But God says something quite beautiful. God says, "Hayipaleh na'Adonai davar." Is there anything too wondrous for God? I'll say it again. Is there anything too wondrous for God? God is saying to Abraham and to Sarah, are you doubting my abilities? Are you saying that there are limits to divine abilities? Are you saying that I, God, cannot perform this miracle, this wonder? And I so appreciate this response from God, because I think that God is not saying, how dare you? God is saying, there are things that are wonders of the world, that are miracles in the world. And he's asking, God is asking, are there things that you think are not possible? Now we have to then, in thinking about that statement, I have to say, wait a second. God, that actually might be what they're thinking. Because we have to remember this relationship between God and Abraham and Sarah is very new. We're not talking about thousands of years of having a relationship, or even generations of a relationship. This is the beginning of the relationship. They're the first. They are the ones who created this initial covenant with God, this initial holy contract with God. So it is understandable, for one, them to be saying, this sounds impossible for me at my age to have a child. But I think that they also are laughing or chuckling or having that appropriate doubt, because they don't know what God's abilities are. When we read the Torah, we know what miracles look like. One, we just read creation. We read the flood. We read the Tower of Babel. We have also read the plagues and the splitting of the sea and receiving the Torah at Sinai and water pouring out of a rock when the people are thirsty and food pouring out of the sky when the people are hungry. We know from the rest of the Torah that God has the ability to create miracles, wonders of the world. But Abraham and Sarah, how would they be? They are the ones who really have, in many ways, more blind faith than we do. More blind faith than the Israelites in Egypt, who at first are doubtful, but then are shown the plagues. They haven't experienced these wonders in a direct, tangible way. So it's quite understandable that they might say to themselves, I don't know what this God can do. We're early in the relationship. We're still figuring that out. And yes, we are in it. We have committed. We are trusting. But who are we to say what's possible? And I think that in saying, from God's perspective, God saying to them, is anything too wondrous for God? God is actually answering that doubt for them. And God is able to say to them, don't worry. There is nothing too wondrous for God. Now, of course, on the other side, you have to believe it. You have to be open enough to accept it. Your womb has to be open to the possibility that it might be filled. But ultimately, they want to know that there are no limits to God's power. So when Sarah laughs, it's absolutely appropriate. But when God responds, that gives, I think, Abraham and Sarah an opportunity to reflect on, wow, God is saying to us, how would we know what God's abilities are? And we have to trust. I'll say that I think we all have moments where we wonder about God's abilities. What is God capable of? What can God do? What can God not do? And I think it all goes to the same question. Is there anything too wondrous for God? Now, that does not mean that God always chooses to perform all the wonders that are possible. That doesn't mean that God can swoop in and change what's already in motion. But perhaps God can create miracles. And I would say that in this parsha, what we're seeing is that the miracle of life is quite a miracle. I think sometimes today we think of childbirth and we think of the ability to create life as almost casual, too casual. We think of it as something that is easy, but it's not. We need God to be able to create life. That is a miracle. And it's hard. It doesn't always happen. I mean, we see in these women in the Torah a cycle of many women who aren't able to create life. And sometimes God is able to intervene, and sometimes God is able to say, I'm going to plant the seed of life in your womb. But that is not always the case. And we have to be able to sit in that discomfort that Sarah felt, knowing that for many women, it is not possible. So on the one hand, yes, is anything too wondrous for God? Perhaps not. But a lot of us are still waiting for those miracles to show. So I hope that as we read this Parsha, I hope that we're able to, all of us, experience moments where we're able to just bask in the glory of how wondrous God is, but also to understand that just like Sarah, it's okay to have doubt. It's okay to chuckle at the idea. When we chuckle, a lot of times it's because of discomfort, maybe because of sadness. We have to also know it's okay to wonder, why is this not possible? Is it even possible? How might it be possible? So with that, I hope that as we read this parsha, we have moments of wonder, Pella. We have moments of trust. And that if we're also having moments of discomfort or anger, that we're able to share it with others. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Roy.
I'm taking care of the head